We got a little presentation. We got always got to have a few slides here to accompany the demo, but most of tonight is going to be demo. So don't you worry. All right. I think we've waited long enough here. If we got a few more coming in, a few more will come in, and let's get going. Welcome everyone to AI Workflows for Writing, Research, and Data Analysis. This was originally called Claude Code for Beginners and decided to start with the use case rather than the solution. So we kind of flipped the naming here. So everything we're going to be showing is going to be done using Claude Code. But the use cases we're going to be working on is showing how to use it for writing, research, and data analysis. So, all right, a little bit about ourselves. My name is Tony Pelosi. I've been in the industry now for 24 years, worked at a couple of big tech companies, and then been in venture building for the last 10 years, kind of doing the 0 to 1 thing. I was an engineer, but I haven't really coded in about 15 years. But AI and vibe coding and these other tools have really inspired me to kind of dust off my skills. And even though I'm still not writing any code anymore, I'm kind of going all in on AI tooling, vibe coding, and workflow automation. So I'll hand it over to Gang to introduce himself.
Yep. So hi everyone, my name is Gang. So I've been working in startups for about 10-ish years, mainly in those like very early stage startups, 0 to 1 and stuff. And that's how I got to know Tony, because he was in a venture building company and I was in one of the startups down there. And because like all this AI boom and stuff, I've been like deeply embedded in the AI space, building a lot of different products from like AI agents to AI workflows, evals, RAG. Yeah, so touch a bit of everything here and there. And yeah, we'd love to share what we have tonight. Back to you, Tony.
All right, so here's what we'll be covering tonight. So some of you might know what Claude Code is, some of you might not know what Claude Code is. So we're going to go into what is it, why you would use it, and then even how do I even access this thing, Claude Code. So let's do a little bit back to the chat right here. So if you have used Claude Code before, type a 1 in the chat. If you have not used Claude Code before, type a 2 in the chat. And let's see how many people have or have not used Claude Code before. 2222. All right. So far, most people have not used it.
Oh, nice. And you're all in for a treat.
All right. Okay, after that, we're going to go into demos. So today is I've used it to update website with FTP. All right. So in it, we're only going to spend a few minutes really talking about Claude Code. Most of the time is going to be going through and showing you the demos. The demos really are what I like to call art of the possible. We're going to go through and kind of and show you each of these in real time and show you how they work. We're not going to expect you to go through and walk along with us and to be able to run it at the same time. This is something that we can do during the Q&A if you guys have questions at the end. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what's next. What do we have planned next? And then we're going to stay on and do an extended Q&A beyond the hour. So the rules of engagement for tonight is definitely be vocal over the chat window. Go in and type if you have any questions, type those questions. And while one of us is presenting, the other one of us will be looking through those Q&A questions and attempting to answer your questions. Just with a bunch of people on, that is the best thing we found to do. Yes, we will be recording the session and we will be sending the session out afterwards. And then what we'll do is if you guys have more in-depth questions or that we haven't answered anything during in the chat during the Q&A, we're going to continue on until the 90-minute mark. So feel free to come off a voice and we can have vocal discussions as long as you guys want to talk. Up until that 90-minute mark, we'll go through and talk. So that's kind of like the rules of engagement for interacting tonight. So I'm going to hand it over to Gang to actually talk about what is Claude Code.
All right. So actually, Claude Code, I think you all might have heard of like Cursor, VS Code and stuff like these are like coding tools, especially like Cursor is an AI coding tool itself. So actually, Claude Code is an AI coding tool by the Anthropic team, or what they call like Claude. So currently, a lot of engineers are using it because we all know like the Opus model is the best at coding. So a lot of developers are using it, and if you really think of it from like a principal perspective, right? Code files are essentially files and also folders, which is actually very, very similar to how we are using like files and folders in our like G Drive and stuff, just as theirs is like different syntax. So currently, how are developers using Claude Code is to understand complex code bases, breaking down complex problems, organize and processing files at scale, and automate repetitive tasks itself. And if you think of the analogy and the connecting like similarity whereby code files and the usual files that we are familiar with, like PDF, PPT, they are all like text and they are all like stored in folders. So essentially, we can actually use an AI coding tool to handle far more than just code, which later we'll show you a lot of like different examples via the demo, how it works, especially how you can use it to create like documents, PDFs, etc. So essentially the same capabilities that make it great for coding, like make Claude Code great for coding, reading, reasoning, etc., is actually make it perfectly great for any complex task. And even the Claude team themselves, they use and the SDK version of it, which is like a separate package, and they even use it to help industries like finance or even data science build products out of it. And the underlying layer is just the same similar primitives as Claude Code itself. Next slide. Yeah, I think this is the slide whereby it will give you a more concrete difference. Why use Claude Code over the current Gen AI tools? Because I believe a lot of you definitely have used like ChatGPT before, or even like Perplexity, or just a Claude desktop app. And after using it, especially as a power user, you will encounter a few challenges or a few walls. One of it is that it is a single conversation thread. It means once you chat with it, you only can chat with like one agent at a time, one AI at a time. And the biggest challenge is also like when you hit the limits, they will say like, oh, sorry, you have hit the limits. You need to start a new chat, which means you lose all the previous context, which is like super troublesome. Then you have to start from scratch like each time. But Claude Code, however, is built for long-running tasks. So it has features like sub-agents, whereby when you have that main thread itself, you can spin up sub-agents within the main thread to help you to execute on tasks so that it doesn't take up the context window or take up the space, help you to perform tasks, then just return the final output back to the main agent to process. So you can imagine you can process much, much more information. And in a sense, it also has unlimited working memory because it has an auto compaction feature. So once it reaches the end of like the chat window itself, it will automatically summarize and start a new session itself and continue working on. That's why the Claude team even tried running like a task for 30 hours straight without like starting a new chat itself. And the best part is you can create custom workflows. So with a few keystrokes, for example, you can create like slash create document. You can create that as a custom prompt. You can just run it and it will like create the respective task that you specified it to do. That's why it is so powerful. That's why if you think about it in a single statement, like ChatGPT and Claude are more like conversation, you chat back and forth to like refine your task. But Claude Code, you can literally use it to execute tasks, which we will show in the demo later. So back to you, Tony.
Cool. So if anyone on the call has experienced a desire to have, multiple conversations or processes going at once, or has hit that limit where when you're in a chat, it says you need to start over and start a new chat, or have ever, encountered a scenario where you wish you could do something on a little bit more predictable, repeated basis, rather than having to repeat it and hope that it will do the same thing again. If anyone has, if any of that resonates with anyone, please type a one in the chat. All right, let's keep it coming. If everything we just said sounds like we are speaking alien language, type a 2 in the chat. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Maybe we are from another planet.
because it will help us to steer our like which areas to focus.
Right. We might be from another planet. There is a non-zero probability that we're from another planet, or maybe that we're living in a complete simulation altogether. So you never know. All right. So I'm going to go forward and talk about how to access Claude Code. So the OG interface for Claude Code is in what is called a terminal window on a Mac, or on Windows, it's called either prompt or PowerShell. So it goes by different names, but basically that's that little window command line interface where you can type into it, and it's basically text based. This is the original interface by which you can interact with Claude Code. It's still probably the primary one that a lot of people use. But since that time, it has rolled out into different interfaces. The one that Gang is, I'm going to show you in the old school terminal window. Gang's going to show you what's called an extension within an integrated development environment, or an IDE. So he's going to talk about that a little bit and why that makes it a little bit more usable and easier to use. Um, then there's also this tool called opcode.sh, which someone went through and for free built a visual interface on top of Claude Code to make it a little easier to work with. My favorite aspect of it is actually the usage dashboard. So it can show you how many, in a visual way, how many credits have been used and which projects you've been using that on. You can even now use it within Slack. So there's a Claude app in Slack. So you can interact with Claude or even Claude Code within Slack. And then as of recently, Claude has actually released Claude Code in pretty much each of its visual interfaces. So Claude Code for the web on both desktop and mobile, and then in the Claude Code native apps in the desktop and in mobile. But I wouldn't go rushing to use them anytime soon if you're not using them for building and developing on top of a code base. The way that the ones work that are built, the way that Claude Code works, built into their existing tools, is it asks you to connect to a repository, a remote repository like GitHub. So if you're working on a GitHub repository, great, you can use these tools and go for it. Otherwise, you're going to still want to use either the terminal, the Claude Code extension in VS Code or Cursor, or even check out opcode.sh once you've installed Claude Code locally. So yeah. All right. So if you guys are ready for a demo, type D for demo. If you guys, for some reason, have a question and it hasn't been answered, type N for no, you're not ready for the demo. All right. Cool. Let's go through and answer some of these questions. So Dan, I'm going to answer your question first, which is how is Claude Code different than Claude.ai? So Claude AI is the web interface that you can use during either desktop or mobile. There's actually, when you go to Claude.ai, you can choose between Claude or Claude Code. When you choose Claude Code, you'll get the interface that you see in the bottom left if you're in desktop, or to the right of it, the Claude Code web if you're on mobile. They built these for you to be able to work with code bases basically on the go, is what they really created these for. So you can be able to access it without having to open up your desktop, and you can do it from mobile. Those are the ones where you do have to connect to your repository. So if you're using, a terminal window, connected to a repository, or Claude Code on the web or desktop, in a browser, it's kind of the same. But the difference is when you're on the terminal window, in addition to accessing your GitHub repo, it can access your entire computer, whereas the web one can only access that GitHub repo. And we're actually going to show you a demo of the power of this Claude Code being in a terminal or in this VS Code extension, because it can do a lot of things with your local file system. And then Andy, is there any difference if you use it directly in the terminal versus Claude Code on Cursor? When you use it within a terminal window, when you use it in a terminal window, it runs basically the same, but you get the added benefit of, I'll let Gang show you because he's going to show you when he goes into his demo, what are the benefits of using Claude Code within an integrated development environment, like Cursor, as opposed to simply using it in the terminal.
Hold on. Oh, so to add on to Andy's question, right? So the difference between using the terminal versus on Cursor, right, is like they are essentially two different kinds of coding agents. Cursor itself is a coding agent on its own. It has certain features, for example, like the browser, you can like select things on a browser, etc., like an inbuilt browser. So Claude Code, it has certain features that Cursor do not have. For example, sub-agents. For Claude Code, within the same session, you can spin up multiple sub-agents. So for example, if you have one sub-agent that helps you to analyze NaN code, then another sub-agent that maybe helps you do a web search to check on things. They are all separate agents with their own context window that they can go out, perform tasks autonomously, and then come back with the results, which Cursor currently do not have, but Cursor is going to have it soon. So the coding agents race is like moving super quickly with everyone converging to a certain set of features, but currently Claude Code is ahead. Now, I think next for Dan's question also, how does Claude Code differ from the web app itself? The biggest difference is the Claude Code itself has sub-agent feature. Like the main Claude web app, right, you're only working on a single main thread and you can't like invoke different sub-agents. So for example, you're using NaN, if you're using Claude Code, you can say like invoke the NaN sub-agent to help me research on like all the NaN documentation and stuff. You'll spin up a separate agent to go and perform the task so that it doesn't clog up your initial context window. So for example, initially you use up 20%, then you spin out another sub-agent, it goes out to do all the searches that takes up maybe like 50% context, but it's 50% context of its own context. Then when it returns, you still have a lot of space to perform your subsequent tasks. That's why Claude Code is so powerful because it has this sub-agent feature that the web app or the desktop app do not have. That's why the desktop app, you always run into issues like, oh, you have reached the end of your limits. Please open a new thread. Claude Code, you will never face that issue. They have auto compaction, means that when you're reaching near the end of the chat, they will automatically summarize your whole session, spin up a new one, and continue working off that. They won't stop. They will only stop until they finish the task. That's why it is very execution focused, and that's why it's so amazing. Oh yes, and Vinny, later we'll show you how we can spin up these sub-agents within Claude Code. And maybe back to Tony.
All right. So we're going to do demo time here. We're going to do our first demo. So let me actually kind of show you my desktop here. All right. So if you look at on the left right here, this is a terminal window in Mac OS. And so I open up this terminal window and I'm in a particular directory. You can see this is the file path of where I am. You can see on the right over here, this is my desktop. I got a bunch of files and folders that are all over here. So I've been, you know what? I've been slacking. I haven't been organizing my files. Whether it's your desktop folder, whether it's your downloads folder, some random folder called to be organized or something like that. If anyone here, suffers from that or has experienced that, can you put, 1 in the chat? So go through and put 1 in the chat if you guys have dealt with this at all.
Oh, nice. Quite a lot of people
All
have the
right.
file on top of a file in front on the Mac desktop.
All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm in the terminal window. I'm going to come in. I'm going to type the word Claude. So you'll see, usually he's orange, but for the holidays, they made him a little kind of a lighter color and got a little bit what looks like kind of snow around him now. So now we're in here, we can actually, talk to Claude Code. So I'm going to go through and give him a command. I'm going to tell him, please clean up um, please clean up my files on my desktop into subfolders by subject matter, not by type, and place duplicates in a duplicates folder. So I could basically tell it pretty much anything. I could tell it to rename files. I can tell it to reorganize files. I can just tell Claude what it is I want it to do, and it has access to my file system. But it does go through and get confirmation before doing things. So don't worry about it going and deleting and wiping and moving a bunch of things without it asking for permission. It is going to go through and ask for permission before modifying files, moving files, deleting files, or doing anything like that. So right now, Claude is going through and is looking at my desktop and is going through and analyzing the files that are in my desktop. And it tells me I can see there are many files with clear duplicate pairs. Let me analyze and organize them for you. So it says, based on my analysis, I'll organize your files into these subject categories. It says tech manuals, events and presentations, real estate, deals and subscriptions. And now for the first time, it says there's this thing called the bash command. It says, do you want to proceed? I'm going to say yes, allow reading from my desktop folder. You don't have to ask me again. So you can go through and continue to tell it what to do. And another thing there we go. It's asking me, do you want to proceed? So this little command, you don't have to know what it is, but it's change directory. So it's basically going through and moving around files. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to proceed. You might have noticed that some of the files on my desktop are actually no longer there. I'm going to go through and hit enter again. And if you notice, a few more files are starting to actually move. So I'm going to go through and keep on hitting enter. And as I hit enter, you'll notice files are continuing to move as I go. You'll also notice right here, there are these things called tokens. So you have a certain number of tokens that you can use within a day or within a month. And it's telling you how many tokens each of these things is using and doing. So you can actually keep track of your tokens. And we'll show you afterwards how to view how many tokens you have used in a day or in a month. So I'm going to go through and just keep on hitting enter, enter, enter. It's continuing to organize files into these subject folders. And look at that. It looks like most of them have been moved. I'm going to say sort by name. And you'll see now it's going to tell me, it's probably going to do some stuff with the duplicates. So it's actually gone through and moved all those files into different folders. Now it tells me I'm done. I moved tech manuals into this folder, travel related files into this folder. So if I open this up, you'll see I've got some, itineraries, missing luggage tag thing, anything that it deems to be. So it knew that scoot.png was travel because it can actually look inside the actual file itself and know the contents of what's in here. So it's actually intelligently moving your files based on what is inside of it. And you also see that there is a duplicate folder. And so it took all the files that are duplicates and it placed the duplicates in a duplicates folder so that way I can double check and delete all the files that are duplicates. So if that seems something that is useful to you and you would like to do something like this, type a 1 in the chat box. All right, we got an exclamation mark. Yes, you can do it with your downloads folder. You can do it with any folder you want. You can even do it with your Google Drive if you have the Google Drive folder, if you have the Google Drive desktop app, and you have the local file system synced. Andy, how to set it up for the first time. There's a few different ways that you can go through and install it. We can discuss that in the Q&A, and we'll also talk about how to dive in and into depth in our kind of next session. Ooh, iPhone app organization. Ooh. Do you mean in like your app icons on your screen, or like your app downloads folder, like the folders that you download on your iPhone? App downloads on iPhone. All right. I we can talk about that during the Q&A. Based on how you're syncing with iCloud, there's some ways to do some things with iCloud syncing to be able to still use Claude Code to hit iCloud. Uh, Brian, for Google Drive, there's actually two different ways to do it. You can use an MCP server, or you can actually, if you're using the Google Drive on your desktop and you're syncing your files to your local machine, then you can actually access your Google Drive files locally. So, for example, I do that for myself. Let's see here. If I open a new window, let's see. If I come in here, you can see that I have Google Drive synced locally. So I can come in. This is actually stuff that's in my Google Drive. And let's see here. If I come in here, I'm going to show you guys a little trick really quick. I'm going to say CD, which is to change directory, and I'm going to drag this window over to here and hit enter. And what it does is it actually goes through and changes my directory to a directory that's inside of my Google Drive. So it says you're in your Google Drive personal folder. It is already a well-organized structure with 32 subject folders. There's one loose file, en.pdf at the root level. Would you like me to do something with this directory? So it understands context of what I have been doing in this folder. So if I hit ls, it just lists the files that are in this directory, and you'll see that it's going to go through and list those files. And it says that there's 32 folders and then one PDF file. And there's another cool little command called pwd, public working directory. So none of this stuff is actually Claude Code stuff. This is just terminal Windows stuff. So you'll see the shell resets the project directory after each command. So it actually went back to the other directory. But you can see that it actually accessed and was able to show, it's able to view what is in my Google Drive because I have the Google Drive app installed on my Mac. Cool. All right. So I am going to actually go through and stop sharing, and I'm going to hand it over to Gang to actually show. Is there any more questions actually before we move forward? I know you have questions about how to install Claude Code. It takes a few commands to install it, but awesome. All right, Gang, over to you.
All right, sounds good. So I think what Tony's shown is a very interesting, but it expresses the very fundamental concept of how do you use Claude Code. Because if you think about it, Claude Code can access your terminal. Your terminal controls your entire computer, your local machine. So essentially, you can think of it like Claude Code can be an agent to do things on your local computer, which is like super powerful. And that's where we will showcase the few demos that just to illustrate this point. How can you use Claude Code to do things? Because you can access your local file system. Uh, yes, so I think I will recommend maybe you start with the Pro plan first or plan mode. Yeah, I think usually these tasks are relatively simple, so you don't really need plan mode because you'll be surprised. Claude Code's model, which is like Opus 4.5, is super intelligent. So typically, when you use plan mode is when you have more complex tasks, maybe like organizing an entire project with a lot of moving parts, analyzing a lot of information, then that's where maybe you'll need the plan mode so that you can come up with a plan and it can be more on track. Okay, so with this, right, I will show you the very first demo. Let me share my screen. Okay, Tony, I sent a request.
All right.
Sounds good. Okay. Okay, I'll share my screen over here. So what you're looking at is actually Cursor. So Cursor is a coding platform for you to do the code, but don't have to be too afraid of what it is because it is actually a very simple construct. Like on the left, you see your files and folders. So I open a file using Cursor, so that's where it will showcase like all the folders and all the files within. At the center column is where it will show the content of the file that you select. So for example, I select this markdown file, then it shows what is in the content itself. On the right is where I open Claude Code within the terminal, which is via a VS Code extension. You don't have to know that, it's okay, which is essentially exactly what Tony is doing. But I just opening it on the side view itself. So for the first demo, right, I will showcase the sub-agents capability, which I think a lot of you will be very interested in. So I have this prompt here that I says like, okay, help me generate a comprehensive PDF report on strategies for building high-performing teams. So this is a very actual real-world task that you might do at your day-to-day job, like researching on something, creating a report out of it. And creating a report requires you to ingest a lot of information. And the good thing about Claude Code itself, right, it has access to web search and stuff. And I created a skill called report gen, which is a set of instructions on how to create the report itself. And I also give it a few instructions. So Claude Code is even smart enough to ask me certain questions first. They're like, okay, what's target audience for this report? Okay, maybe I'll target executives. I want a very simple 2 to 3 pages brief. Focus area, I can select everything. Yeah, submit. So once I submit, it will start to perform my task itself. But while it's performing, right, let me show previously I've generated a report and what kind of report that I can generate. So here's a report here. Minimize this. That it has executed. So you can see it's an actual PDF. It's actually generated by Claude Code because they have certain code to create PDFs with embedded links. So if I can click on this, it opens an actual like link itself so that this is where it got its information from. So you can see currently now, right, it has spun out 4 sub-agents. One sub-agent to research on different aspects of the research report. Because you can see this is not code at all. We are using it to perform an actual like business application kind of task, like research. So it starts off, each one has their own context window. You can see each one, they start off with like 19K tokens and it initializes the search. You can see this one starts to perform the web search because it has inbuilt web search. So you'll just continue on searching and you can even see what is happening under the hood. So you can see like, okay, it thinks like the user wants this, then you'll launch the agents and you'll start to do its searches. So everything is running in parallel. Let's see whether I can find. So you can see here, it perform all, and this is only performed by one sub-agent. So you can imagine each sub-agent, they can do 5 to 10 web search, and there's 5 of them. So it's like instantly doing 50 searches, which is something that if you want to do it on ChatGPT, you have to use their deep research, but they're probably doing it under the hood. You do not know what is happening. But here you have complete visibility itself. So I will stop running this one because if I run this, it will take actually like 5 to 10 minutes. So essentially this report that you see here, it ran for 5 to 10 minutes nonstop, running all the sub-agents and the web search to generate this report and synthesizing it directly into a PDF report right here. So you can see you can formulate like tables, analysis, key findings, data stats. Essentially, it's doing it like an actual report itself. And then you also include the references at the end. Each one is a link of its own. You can click, you can open, you can view. So everything it's within the file system itself. Let me stop this task and I can show you the other demo.
Or moving on to the other demo, who here has ever needed to put together a report, whether it's in a PDF, whether it's in a PowerPoint, Google Slides, Word document, anyone here who put a one in the chat if you've ever had to put together a report of any kind. All right. And so one of the benefits of Claude Code that Gang mentioned earlier on is you can actually create these custom commands. So he can do this with one command, just and just given it the subject or the topic to research, and that command has already been trained in what the format is, how to do the footnotes, any styling that you have in it. So if you are going to do this in a repeated basis, let's say for work, and on a repeated basis, you need it to conform and look and have a certain look and feel. You can have it do that, and it will always have that same look and feel. And yes, this also works in PowerPoint. So if you have a PowerPoint template or a PowerPoint style, and you need your research to conform to a very specific PowerPoint template, you can give it that template, and yes, you can create a PowerPoint that adheres exactly to the format and the style that you need. That let's say if your company has a particular PowerPoint template.
Oh, yes. And I think Andy mentioned use perplexity before. Yes. So typically, I set up the rules actually on Claude Code. So to give a very quick primer, within this .claude file is where you set like, there are different primitives. There are skills, they have custom prompts. So what I did was I created a skill. So I created, just now the report I created using this skill called report generation. So you can see within this skill.md file, I specify how I want my report to be like. Because I put like critical, all report must include inline citations. That's why you can see there's inline citations, everything. So that's why it is very flexible and extensible because I can quickly just invoke it. I can just say, okay, use the report gen skill and generate this report. Here are the information that you have and generate the report for me. That's why it's a lot easier compared to using ChatGPT because you have to like ChatGPT, you have to like put in so many things inside just to like make it how you want it to be.
And you
Okay.
can actually use Claude Code to help you create the skill
Yeah.
with just a sentence or two. You don't have to go through and type all this stuff in like that. It's very circular. You can use Claude Code to create a skill, and then that skill can be used to create more skills. It's very circular.
Yeah. So Vinny, some of the skills here, I got it so as a template from Claude, but the report gen one is the one I created myself because they have this skill called a skill creator. They can use it to create other skills. Skill is a markdown file. Yes. So the skill is a markdown file whereby you define, so you can just think a markdown file is like a prompt. So this will be injected to Claude Code. So Claude Code will see this. That's why you'll follow the instructions within this skill.md file to create the final artifact that you define. So the rules are dependent on your own knowledge, like what kind of report you want to create, what are the different sections there are. How does it interact with Google Slides? So how it interacts, right? There are multiple methods, two main methods. One is via MCP servers, because you can like MCP server connect to your G Drive or connect to the Google suite of tools. And there's also another way whereby the Claude Code itself, because it is a coding agent, it can generate Python scripts to create PPTX files. That's how some folks are doing it. And that is like a more flexible method because you can create all your templates and stuff. So you create the PPTX, then you can like upload it or you can connect MCP to import it into the G Drive itself. That's why it's like super duper flexible because you can imagine, if you imagine it in simplistic way, PDS, PowerPoint slides, Word doc, down the road, all of them are essentially just code. They are just code that's being visualized in a GUI, like a graphical user interface. So by using Claude Code, you are just working with the rawest form. That's why it's highly flexible. Hmm. Yeah, PowerPoint, we haven't had an example for the demo yet, but Tony has done before, I think. Maybe later, maybe during the Q&A, Tony, you can show them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. How can we incorporate local data or files as content for Claude Code that cannot be found on the internet? Okay, so if cannot be found on the internet, you can put it in your local file system. Because, for example, you can see Claude Code, I can reference files. Because, for example, this is a CSV that I put it in inside here. It can be even in your download folder. I can just say something like, how can I analyze? Yeah, just reference this. So I can immediately just reference a file, which makes working with files so much easier because you can just throw it in the files and folders and you can just reference it directly. This actually ties into the second demo, so I can just run it here and you can see the power of Claude Code because it can even analyze CSV file. Because all files are essentially code, which means Claude Code can analyze them. So he invoked the data analysis skill, which is a custom skill that I've created that has certain rules on how you analyze data. So you can see it starts by reading this CSV file. It has like, I think 10 or 20K rows. So you have read, then he asked me, okay, this is an e-commerce customer churn data set. This is what he sees because he can read what is in the CSV. Then he'll even ask you question like, what kind of analysis would I like to perform? I want to perform more of a custom analysis, so I decline. Then maybe I want something like show me the churn by country as a chart. Because it can run Python code, so you can use the Python code to analyze all the data that is here. Because you can imagine if LLMs that doesn't have the ability to write code, it's very hard for them to analyze so much data. There's like 20K rows here. As you can see, I keep scrolling, but the scroll bar doesn't move because there's a lot of data.
Mm.
So you can see now it just runs like Python commands to analyze everything here. Yeah, so maybe I'll say like turn it into a chart. Oh, actually, yes, created a chart already. It's right here. Because you can see, created here. So if you click, this is the chart that they have created. So you can see here. It's based on the actual data, so it's not hallucinating because it is running deterministic code to get all these information out. So that's why like Claude Code is so powerful because you can create PDFs, create PowerPoint slides, and you can even like create like these kind of charts. They can even embed it back to the PDF in order to create a more proper report itself. So next, I'll show you for the next demo, I'll show you.
So before moving on real quick,
Uh-huh.
if anyone on the call has created a chart or a graph based on spread data in a spreadsheet, put a one in the chat.
Yeah, so
Right.
Vinny, I did set up the data analysis skills to be able to generate the chart itself. So you automatically create the chart. So a lot of times skills are like super duper flexible. It depends on how you want to like combine, create them together. Yes, so the Python code is right here. So if I press Command O, yeah, so you can see this is the code that it actually generated and run itself. So it is running a one-time script in order to create this. So Seaborn is actually a package that can generate charts. Because I do quite a fair bit of data analysis using Python, so I'm quite familiar with the packages. So therefore, I'll tell you like, okay, use Seaborn to create this, use matplotlib to create this, use Panda to analyze that, the kind of thing. So it helps when you have some base level of understanding.
It
All
tells you
right.
Australia has, and it also does some insight analysis as well there. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of privacy concerns, the good part about Claude is they are usually privacy by default. They don't really train your data. And actually, most of the major foundational models, which is like OpenAI, Gemini, and Claude, they usually don't train your data by default, except for Gemini. Gemini is slightly tricky because Gemini is by Google. Google love to steal your data. So actually, Gemini has two platforms to use the API. You have to make sure you use the right platform. If you use the Gemini platform, the free version by default, they will train your data. The paid version, they say they won't train your data, but it's slightly vague. So usually enterprise companies, they use Vertex AI to use the Gemini models. But for Claude models, they're usually more like privacy secure. And actually, Claude as a company itself, they focus a lot on enterprises itself, even more than OpenAI. That's why privacy is even more paramount for them. Okay, maybe in the meantime, let me head over to the third demo. So for the third demo, we'll do something interesting. We'll ask it to generate a one-page executive summary PDF on this topic of effective meeting strategies with two infographics. So we will invoke the Nano Banana to create the infographics itself. So let me show you. I'm going to run this. And in the meantime, while I'm running this, right, I can show you a previous sample that I've created. So you can see this is a PDF with the infographics that I've created right here. You see, this is the first one that's created from Nano Banana. Quality is quite good. I didn't create like a super comprehensive prompt. Okay, let me just run this first. And then you can see how AI agents work, common use cases. Like these are infographic generated by Nano Banana itself. And I'm able to combine them into a PDF document, everything via code. That's why it's so extensible and powerful. Because if you just think, if there's just one takeaway from this talk, you can just think, essentially, PowerPoint slides, Word doc, PDF, everything is just code. That's why Claude Code can run them so well, because all these are very solved problems in terms of like what package to use to create PowerPoints and stuff. So next is just how you want to combine them together to create what you want. So it took me even a couple of prompts to refine the instructions to make sure like the formatting like looks nice itself. So you can see here are like the two images that it generated previously. Oh wait, I think it has completed some of the images. So you can see the first infographic that is created is a meeting prep best practice. Because you can see these are in blue, which is new files created. And it created another infographic here on meeting stats, probably because like they managed to find something on it. So now it has completed. So it's starting to create it's starting to create the PDF. So essentially it created a script in order to create the PDF itself. So it's running the script. And let's see. Yep. So you can see here, it has created one. And you can see it's incorporated the infographic that is generated by Nano Banana. Yeah, I've opened it already. Oh, it even helped me to open it within my computer itself. Okay, that's quite a nice touch. So sometimes Claude Code does things that you don't expect that turns out quite well. Because essentially it has control of the terminal, which means it controls your entire computer if you want. So you can see this more clearly. It created an entire report with infographics that's pretty nice. Nano Banana is really pretty good at generate infographics, I would say. And it's quite a nice touch. They make everything like similar brand color. I was quite surprised.
And there's a question in there, gang.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
can Claude Code analyze images if you upload image files?
Oh, yes. Yes, it can. That's why Claude Code is very powerful. It can analyze images and it can analyze PDFs directly.
Yeah.
Oh, so then how Claude Code invoke Nano Banana? It's I provided it the API via a Python script that I've created. So it invoked that Python script. You can see from here, I have an image gen skill where inside I have a script called generate image. So Claude Code is smart enough to call this Python script and it will pass in a prompt to generate the image itself. Yes, so I just had to put my API keys within my .env file, which I wouldn't show it here because it's quite dangerous to show API keys. Yeah, so
Being recorded.
yeah, so you understand a little bit of code to know where to put your API keys and stuff. Then with the Python scripts, you can see this Python script here. It is calling, let me see.
So while you're doing that, put a one in the chat if you've seen anywhere on LinkedIn or any other social media platform how to create an infographic using Nano Banana or how to create any image using Nano Banana.
Oh, yeah, I think many have seen it before. Okay.
All right. Let me ask this question though. Has anyone seen in any of those social media posts on LinkedIn or otherwise how to create not just an infographic, not just an image, but multiple infographics, multiple images, and an entire PDF report all in one prompt? If you have, type in a 5 if you've ever seen that before. That means you haven't seen Gang's latest post. So that's just going to the power of how Claude can run multiple agents. So it's actually doing the research for the port, creating multiple graphics, doing that in parallel, coming back together and putting that all together in one PDF file, or it could do it in one PPTX file, or variety of different files. So that's really the power of being able to do things where it spins up multiple subagents and then that orchestrating agent puts it all back together. So that is the end of the demo. I'm going to go through and we're going to have some closing stuff before we get to the Q&A. Let me go through and share my screen. All right. So first thing here is we would absolutely love feedback. And so there's a little QR code over here. Also, if you take a photo of that QR code, it will send you the feedback form. You'll also get a link to this. I think at 9:15 p.m., Luma is automatically going to send you an email, and it will also include a link to this feedback form. So if for some reason, you're not able to use your phone to take a photo of this, you will, in about 15 minutes, get an email that has a link to the feedback form. For filling out the feedback form, hopefully it should only take about 2 minutes or so. One of those demos that Gang showed was how to create professional PDF research reports with Claude Code. So both the skill that he created to do that, as well as a guide on how to use that skill to actually build it, is in the link that you will get after you fill out the feedback form. So definitely want to learn from our user base here, from our audience, how we can continue to get better at these sessions. All right, the next thing is there was a lot that we showed. Some of it's easy, some of it's a little bit more complicated, but we're actually going to be hosting a session next month in Singapore. It's going to be an in-person session in Singapore. I'm going to let Gang tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing in that workshop.
Yep. So because Claude Code itself essentially is still like a coding tool. So there's a little bit of learning curve in terms of the setup itself. So that's why we are hosting this in-person workshop that will actually walk you through, handhold you step by step. How do you use Claude Code to achieve whatever we have shown here and a lot more, which is essentially like the end goal is for you to be able to proficiently use Claude Code, create your own custom workflows, for example, maybe your own PowerPoint slides, your own PDF kind of reports that you generally keep having to do on like a daily or weekly basis itself. And beyond that, we will also share like how do you build an AI workspace that can remember your projects, the best practices for creating the best kind of like setup for Claude Code. How do you run the sub agents? How do you use sub agents properly? Because there's actually a lot of knowledge and thought into using sub agents. And how do you take very messy input? How do you reference files? How do you even reference folders, put in a lot of information so that Claude Code can like help you to synthesize everything? And also creating command workflows for repeatable work, just typing like keystrokes like slash generate data, that kind of thing. Then maybe it generates the data of certain information. And also one thing that we'll be focusing a lot is how do you create your own voice? Like, for example, when Claude Code creates your report stuff is similar to your voice rather in a very generic AI kind of voice. Because we also have put a lot of thought in terms of how do you come up with your own voice guide so that Claude Code can follow it when it is generating maybe email replies and stuff, because you can connect to your email and it can even help you draft replies. So there's a lot of possibilities and we are super excited to share with you in person. And back
Awesome.
to you, Tony.
All right. So also, if you're able to come to the course, if you join the course, we're setting up a WhatsApp community. That way, even in between, whether it's a webinar or whether it's a workshop, you'll be able to interact with us and interact with each of the others in the community to be able to share, ask questions, and share. We're also going to be hosting an Ask Me Anything office hour as well. And so if you go through and join the class, we'll also be taking it remote as well. So if you go to the class, then you still continue to have more questions. We'll do an office hour. We'll set a few of those up to split it up. That way we can give you guys some individual attention. And also, if you join that workshop, we're going to be doing future workshops. So if you ever want, feel like you need a refresher, the tools are always changing and improving and new things are coming out. So if you want to join a future workshop, you'll be able to do that at a very discounted rate. So basically this workshop's going to be 4 hour in-person workshop next month. You'll get access to the WhatsApp community. We'll also be hosting AMAs for you to be able to join. And then if you would like to join future sessions, you'll be able to do so at a discounted rate. So just to show you what the price of that is, it is 396 SGD, but we are running a promotion. So if you sign up in 2025, we will give you $100 off for the price of $296. So if you want to sign up, you can go through and sign up with this code SKILL100. You can take a photo or scan the QR code if you would like. Or you can go to the event page and we'll send out a link to the event page and just type in the skill or type in the code SKILL100 and you'll be able to get $100 off, but you have to do that before the end of the year. And we have one more promotion. So this promotion is in honor of the fact that Claude agents or Claude Code can run for 30 hours straight. So this promotion is in place for the next 30 hours. And it's $200 off. And in addition to that, you will get a month of Claude Pro. We'll throw that in. We'll gift that to you as well. So that is a total of $423 value for the price of only 196 SGD. So, but you have to act within the next 30 hours. You can take a photo or scan this QR code, or on the event page, you can enter the code SKILL200. So now is our time that we will go through and field more questions, and we'll stick on until 9:30. And here we go once again, more information about the next workshop. You can scan that code and by the end of the year, enter skill 100 or within the next 30 hours, skill 200 if you want the full discounted rate. So, all right, that is it from our presentation, and we can jump into more Q&A. Anyone have additional questions?
Oh yeah, I think there's a question in the chat. So Shantala mentioned we'll need to have your own plan. Oh nope. So if you sign up for the one that's expiring in 30 hours, the skill 200, you will have a 1 month clock plan so that you can use the clock code. And yep, you have to bring your own laptops for the workshop. It's mainly an in-person because we would like to like really sit beside you to walk you through to make sure that everyone in the workshop understands how to use Claude Code, and you'll be self-sufficient to run on your own, create your own workflows, and really achieve that 10x productivity that usually like AI promises, but it's not actually having it now. But now with all these coding agents, they're so advanced that the engineers are using it and they're having 10x productivity, like why not us? That kind of thing. Okay, Andy, you mentioned, would you recommend using Claude Code to build web app? Yes, in general, I mainly use Claude Code and Cursor to build web apps itself.
Yeah, there is maybe build on that, a pretty common model is to start with a very simple tool, more like a Lovable or a Replit or V0. So there are these other tools that are a little bit more friendly to get started with. They're really good on the front ends, but they're not usually as good on the logic, or the back end logic, or the back ends. So what you do is and this is something we can show as well in the workshop, but you use that tool to start, then you connect it to GitHub, you push your code to GitHub, then you use a tool like Claude Code or Claude Code within Cursor or just Cursor or anti-gravity, and you can pull in from GitHub, and then you can continue working on it from there. And you can actually continue to ping pong back and forth between the two as long as you continue updating the code in GitHub. There's a little bit of trickiness. You have to make sure you create your .env file in both places and copy your API keys and things like that. But that's actually what I typically do is I start with one of the other tools, and then I'll start for like an hour, and then I'll inevitably move over to Cursor with Claude Code extension in Cursor.
Yep, maybe to answer Vinny's question. So actually, Vinny, you pointed out a super good question, and that's very sharp of you. So when onboarding a new person, I'm assuming you want to use Claude Code for non-technical tasks. So I'll answer with respect to that context. Am I right to say that? Like, feel free to unmute to clarify also. Yeah, so I guess it's for non-technical tasks. So the couple of setup choices I would recommend would be start off by using the slash command, which is the custom prompts, because that is the easiest feature and the biggest bang for your buck. Essentially, you just create custom prompts that you can invoke using keystrokes, and the keyword is up to you to define. And for the skill design, is dependent on the task that you have. So a lot of times when I look at the team, I'll look at what are the common tasks that they're working on. Is it generating slides, generating PDF, or which are some of the tedious tasks that they do not like to do? I'll start off with that first so that they can see the highest value in the shortest period of time. Then you'll get them hooked. Then that's where you can introduce more features like the MCPs and stuff. And for the sub agents, you can just use their default sub agents for now. Like they call it general purpose sub agents. That's really like pretty good. Then only if you realize that, hey, maybe I need a use case whereby maybe you have a specialized knowledge that you need, then maybe you create a sub agent that solely focus on getting information about this like specialized domain. Then you can invoke that using the main thread. So that's how I would approach it. So, Vinny, did I answer your question? All right, sounds good. Yeah, anyway, now it's like a somewhat like an open mic session, so feel free to unmute and like chat with us, it's fine. So for Shantala, maybe Tony, you want to take the questions?
Sure. Can the Claude Code locally installed desktop access local files in the PC? So Claude Code in the desktop app, that's the one that I mentioned, whether it's a desktop app or the web app, it's actually built to connect to GitHub to be able to work with remote repositories. It's not geared for working on your local file system. So it's kind of some irony there that the more visual, friendlier looking tool is actually the one that's restricted for software development. And the one that is in the terminal and is a little bit scarier at first is the one that can actually is more flexible, can access all your local files. Yeah.
Yeah, the CLI is daunting, but once you start using it and experience like what are the things Cloud Code can do for you, you'll just get hooked. And for
Yeah.
Andy,
But we'll do that in the workshop. We'll definitely go
yeah,
through. And to be honest, there's only a handful of commands that I use repeatedly in the command line interface. Most of the time that I'm in there, I'm actually in Claude Code typing to it like I would basically type like if I was in Claude Desktop.
yeah. So actually in a CLI, the only thing you need to know is just Claude. Because once you type Claude, you're running Claude Code, then all is good. But before that, maybe it's just a few steps to
Change directory,
install,
list
yeah,
files. Yeah, there's
to
a few
install
things. How
the
to
Claude Code itself.
slash MCP is the other one I use a bit. But
Yeah, so you'll take a while to find your like rhythm because everyone uses things differently. Like me and Tony, we both use Cloud Code extensively, but we use it like different kind of style also. So there's different ways. So for Andy's question, he mentioned that he's using V0 and he have a prototype. He's a little stuck when he brings it to cursor. Sometimes there's a bug and it goes in circles. He's a PM and he can't really read code. That's okay. Actually, I would suggest there's two way. One way is using cursor. Cursor recently released a feature called, I think it's like bug mode or something, like debug mode. Try that first. And try debug mode using GPT 5.2. Because in general, OpenAI models are very powerful in terms of reasoning. That's why they take very long. But they can think a lot, which is very helpful when you get stuck. So you just have to articulate where you get stuck so they at least have some form of clue to start investigating. So that what I would suggest. If you want, you can just spin out Cloud Code to try for fun if you want, because Opus 5 4.5 is not bad also. And Cursor also has this feature called review or something. I think you can click like this review button. Hold on, let me just share my screen and quickly show you.
yeah, the other thing I do is I try different models,
Yeah,
or you can try the cursor's models, but you can also try Claude Code VS Code extension inside of Cursor. Um, and
what's
then
the
one of the nice things that Claude does really well is it creates that .md file, and it will actually go in there and it will say, here's what I've done, here's what I've updated, here's where I've gotten stuck, or here are the outstanding tasks that are still left to do. So that even if it's been a little while and you come back to it, you can just say, where did I leave off? And you just type in, where did I leave off? And it'll go through and it'll actually literally tell you and then recommend what it should do next.
Yeah,
So
so Andy in Cursor, this is the debug mode. You can just select. It's recently, I think they only released it like a couple of days. So you can try this. Then you try this with GPT 5.2. Usually this model is quite powerful at like targeting the very gnarly bugs kind of stuff. Yep, so hope that helps. Questions? Feel free to unmute.
So, I guess getting there, you're using Claude Code in Cursor. Do you pay for Cursor and Claude Code and ChatGPT Pro to be able
Mm,
to access 5.2 in there?
yes.
Or like,
Mm.
yeah,
Also, for me, I'm only on the basic paid plan of Cursor because I use the GPT 5.2 sometimes. So with Cursor paid plan, you can access all the models, Opus, GPT, even like Grok, like everything. But I only get the very basic plan because I use it once in a while, especially for front-end stuff because they have the inbuilt browser, which is pretty good. The majority of my tasks are mainly running on Claude Code. So I'm on a max plan, the 100 USD plan, and I use it extensively and I can't hit the limits also. I think you only hit the limits if you open like four Claude Code concurrently running things. For me, the best I can do is to run two Claude Code instance. Anything more than that, my brain cannot take because there's too many things for me to track. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I had a question too. I think it was like parlaying off. I forgot who asked it about like onboarding new employees or something. And I think, yeah, all of us do at times work that is really tedious. And Gang, towards the end of your answer, you mentioned creating a sub agent to go really deep on certain subdomain tasks. And I think in some ways, like that is kind of like the frontier of agents, right? So it's like if you just say, "Hey, go find out everything you can about this subject," you'll only like I'd be curious of your view on how well Claude does just without any additional data, knowledge base, structure, right? They just have like a web
Yeah.
search capability. And then, yeah, like then adding in different data sources um, into that, or then adding custom prompts into that. Um, like how much leveling up do you get in terms of quality repeatability?
Got it. I think usually what I usually prefer doing is use all the baseline sub agents. So these are the sub agents that's already built in Claude Code, which handle most of the cases. So, for example, they have this explore sub agent that is just specialized in searching for stuff. So I even have a repo that we use to like run our business. It's just a bunch of like folders and text. But I always use this explore agent to search for things because it's very fast. Because it uses the inbuilt search tooling that they have, which is like via the terminal, and they can search for things very quickly. So I will usually use all their default ones until I feel like, hey, it is not good enough. Then I'll create my own sub agent because usually sub agents can get a little bit tricky. I took quite long to understand the nuance of the different sub agents because one very common mistake people do is they create roles for sub agent. So for example, like, oh, I have a sub agent that is a front end agent that does the front end. I have another agent that does the back end agent that does the back end, which is what I think I touched on my talk earlier when you joined. Because when you create sub agents, you need to make sure these sub agents are more of like read only kind of capabilities. Because if two sub agents edit the same file, that's where things get like super messed up. That's why usually I won't recommend dabbling with sub agents if you are beginning. Start off by the slash commands, which is the custom prompt. So you can see I have a lot of slash commands here, but these are in my other repo because it will carry forward up that actually performs a lot of different tasks. I have a slash command that just creates a PRD, which is just a custom prompt that creates a PRD. Then I have a couple of others. I always have a commit push slash command because I always will commit my files to GitHub repo. And I always like to commit in a certain kind of style. So I put my style as a slash command, which is a custom prompt. Yeah. Hope that answers your questions.
Very good.
All right, we'll stay on a little longer if anyone else has any questions.
Yeah,
Um,
I just want to hang out and chat. It's also fine. We enjoy chatting with folks.
Okay.
the other thing is we're also still coming up with the agenda and exactly what we're going to do during the workshop.
Yeah.
But the workshop will be flexible because we're gonna it's you guys are going to bring things that you guys want to work on, so that's going to dictate also what we're going to do during that time. So we'll have some of the like the building blocks and we'll go through like commands and skills and things like that, but then a good chunk of that time is going to be working time to actually go through and implement.
Got it. Yeah, I was about to ask that. So like I think I guess like one of my use case or the use case that I imagine I would like to explore is like more on the analytics side of things. Because like I'm basically I get data that is sometimes very unorganized or it hasn't been clean before. But I imagine like I want to use something in Python to clean up the data before I run analysis through it. Is that something that you think Claude Code is Claude Code suitable, and how will you approach it?
Oh, yeah,
Gang, you
Tony.
want to answer that one?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so actually I'm just like very good at it because you can run a lot of like different Python scripts to clean. And cleaning is usually the usual thing, like check for duplicates and stuff. It knows typically by default because it's trained on like the worldwide GitHub repository, so it knows all the different Python packages and scripts to use. Because
Okay,
so there's a period I also did a lot of like data analysis because we create AI products for clients and we need to do evaluation, which is like evaluate the AI agent. So there's like a shit ton of data. We need to like make sense of it. So we just use Claude Code for everything.
got it. Understand. And for these cases, like how much is out of the box like with Claude Code, and how much is like actually skills or like sub agents that you need to prepare?
Yeah,
Hmm.
so typically I would like to use it without any skill. I always like to test a system like just based on the raw thing. Because from there, then you can see like where it is not good at. Because maybe a certain kind of data analysis, it is not very good at it. Then that's where
Okay.
maybe you can create a skill out of it.
Yeah.
Or if you always do your data analysis in a certain way, in certain steps, yeah, then maybe you create a slash command for it. You tell like, okay, step one, always do this. Step two, do that. Step three, do this, that kind of thing. Then it will follow everything accordingly. That's why Cloud Code is super flexible. And during the practical workshop, we will teach you all the primitives in detail so that you understand when to use which one, which is like super important. Because it took me like 6 months to really understand all this because I'm using it on a daily basis. I'm
Mm,
using it 6 to 8 hours a day for everything: client work, managing our business, writing articles, researching on different things. I use Cloud Code for everything.
got it.
I
Okay,
don't
thank
use it
you.
that often. That's a lot, but I think one of the examples that I showed, the one that was cleaning up your desktop or cleaning up your downloads folder, that one was not using any skill whatsoever. But there is a skill for that, a published skill for that, which is a lot more robust and it already has been defined on how to handle duplicates. It'll create like a text file or like a spreadsheet that says what all the duplicates are and where's the original and here's a duplicate, why it thinks it's a duplicate, and it organizes things in a particular way. And then you can even train it to or change it. It's just literally a markdown file, which is text. You can go in and change it, or you can tell it, "Hey, I would like you to update this skill to do it a different way," and so it can learn. So you can start with the skill. So it really depends. You can do a lot without these skills, but then if you want to do it on a repeated basis, then you do those skill. But I think even just like that first example I showed you, I was debating whether or not I was going to show a skill, but I wanted to show something completely vanilla out of the box and to show you that it could literally do something like clean up your desktop without any skill, any slash command, just out of the box. That's how it was working.
Best part is you can get Claude Code to write all the prompts and improve on the prompts for you. Because you can ask it to write the prompt, you test it, then you tell it like, oh, I found like this not good. Please fix. Then you'll okay, you'll fix it for you because everything is just text and instructions.
Got it. You mentioned you use it quite a lot for your business. Maybe is it possible to share like maybe some use case for your business that you found helpful?
Yeah, because a lot of times, because in our business, everything is very new and AI moves very fast. So I use it a lot for learning all the new stuff that's coming in for AI.
Okay,
Yeah.
understand.
It's like super helpful in learning like new things, which actually accounts for like 30 to 40% of our use cases because a lot of times a lot of the stuff is very new.
What about marketing? Do you all use it for any marketing use case?
Marketing, yeah, sometimes creating like social media posts, creating articles,
Okay.
Yeah, because the best part is if you are familiar with marketing, you know, like there's this guide on how to write SEO friendly articles. You can just put it into Claude Code and say, referencing this, help me to generate article.
Right. Right.
It's
Got it.
very smart because the Opus 4.5 model is fantastic.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things I was doing earlier today was from Luma, you can export an attendee list as a CSV. So then I gave that to Claude Code and I can use an MCP server to connect to LinkedIn to then add additional data fields for each of the attendees because you can do like a reverse email lookup. So we have everyone's email address, so we can provide a lookup given the email address to then get, well, what company do you work for? What's your job title? So like a lot of people in a web form will ask those questions. We don't need to ask those questions because we can use Claude Code to extract it for us.
Got it. That's super cool.
So essentially, you can think anything that you are doing on your computer, on your local machine, Claude Code can do it.
I use a lot of like Google Sheets though. Is there any interface or like how will you interact with Sheets and yeah, do you have any like do you have this particular use case or I guess for me it's just a natural thing that a lot of the things I start gravitating towards Sheets just because a lot of my clients and potentially
Hmm.
also like it's also the choice of workspace that a lot of people have. So that yeah, but it seems like it's more suitable for interacting with your local machine and seems like Sheets is not really on your local machine, right?
Actually, you can because there are MCP servers. Just
Okay.
that sometimes MCP servers are a little bit trickier to set up because they might require you to go to your Google console, which is a pain in the ass to navigate. Once you get past the pain, it's a one-time thing. Then you connect your Google Sheets and you can do stuff to it.
Got it. Okay, so that it's still possible and you will do it through MCP. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool.
But just
And
that for me, usually I tend to steer away from NCPs. But okay, because I like to over-optimize. NCPs takes up a lot of space in the LLM, like the context window.
yeah,
And the MCP sometimes they can take up like straight away like 10-20%.
okay,
They have like 50 tools in MCP. So
understand.
usually I like to like do some like custom coding so that I can maximize, so I can increase my performance of the LLM. Because usually
Okay,
typically the LLM, if it's past 60 to 70% of the context window, the outputs tend to degrade because there's too much information for them to process.
understand. Okay, cool. Thanks,
Maybe
man. Yeah,
so,
thanks so much for
so
sharing.
related to Excel, I guess, like how have you been, I guess, trying to ensure that the outputs are deterministic? Would it just be like skills or, yeah, just curious as well.
Mm. So for the deterministic one, usually what I try to do is as much as possible, get Cloud Code to write code to execute it. Because as long as it's executed by code, the determinism is higher, which is usually for quantitative data like analyzing CSVs and stuff. But if it's generating reports, yes, there might be a chance of hallucination. So I will always review things. I won't like take it at face value. So does that answer your question, Vinny?
Yeah, got it. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, but there's other ways to increase its level of determinism, whereby maybe you can create another sub-agent to check its work.
Hmm.
Like maybe you can even do deterministic checks like, for example, if you generate a PDF or a markdown, you can ask it to run a code to check like all the links are valid. So that's a
Hmm.
very easy and deterministic check, at least like a base level.
Hmm. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Hello,
Right.
I have another question. Yeah,
Fire away.
thanks, guys. So that was really cool. Um, I love the enthusiasm that you guys have. It's like rubbing off. I was curious, especially Gangs, and I mean both of you. I was just curious about the mention earlier on in the session or before the session began. You guys were talking about N8N and how you had a way to use something to look and update NAN workflows. And I'm just curious to know how you go about thinking about that. And then how do you even use, if possible, to use Claude Code to like troubleshoot things? Because I find that a lot of my workflows have all
Mhm.
these like, kinks or like things are not working, and like I spending like hours is just trying to figure out how to like connect everything. And so I'm curious how you would go about doing that.
Yeah. Well, we'll show that in the workshop. That's one of the things we can definitely do in there. Um, there's I've only started using it about a week ago, to be honest. And the what I started doing was debugging. I've got some pretty complex stuff in an NAN workflow that hasn't been working for me, and I was able to use Claude Code. It took a few steps, but it was able to go through, figure things out, make those updates, and then to test those updates. So someone has written a really good skill and MCP server for N8N. So it's that key that someone has built both of those two things. So I think I had used an MCP server before and it wasn't as good, but then someone also built a skill, both the MCP and the skill, and that made it a lot better. So, I mean, I just do it literally right within a terminal window. I connect it and I tell it to look at a particular workflow, and I say, this is the issue that I'm having with that workflow. And it goes in, it debugs, and it says this, I've only, like I said, I only started using it a week ago, but already I'm pretty impressed by what it's been able to do. But that's something I think it's very powerful. So I think that's something we can definitely share in the workshop as well.
Yeah, because I think to take note, it's mainly like in the training data, I think NAN for Claude, they are still not super familiar with it. So it's very important to find online resources that has like best practices for NAN, etc. And then you put it into Claude Code. Because Claude Code is extremely good at following instructions and understanding guidelines. So when it looks at the guideline instructions, and typically because your NAN, if I'm not wrong, is like a JSON, right? Because in the past, I only created one Telegram chatbot flow, and it's just like a JSON file. So essentially, JSON is code, right? So you just put it in, it can understand. And even some portions, if it's like difficult, right? A little trick is you can just ask Claude Code to write it as a code block. Because code is something that LLMs are extremely good at. And NAN, the pain in the ass is connecting the nodes. But actually, sometimes some of the nodes can be just written as code itself. You can just write it as a JavaScript code. Then just implement it as a code block within NAN, and it probably can save you quite a lot of issues. Yeah, that's the thing that I always like defer towards, because when I keep getting stuck in NAN, I'll be like, oh damn it. I'll just just create a code block for it and solve it for me.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, because if you think of it from like the primitive layer, LLMs are extremely good at writing code, like JavaScript, Python. And I think N8N, if I'm not wrong, is in JavaScript, because I remember I have custom code blocks that is in JavaScript. Because especially the things that usually I have issues is whereby you are parsing a lot of like information and data. And because everything is in different objects, you have to like extract the right value from each object. And that's where like things like mess up. So usually I'll just like write it as a JavaScript code, extract all the relevant values for me so they can pass it down the pipeline. Yeah, the moral of the story is don't be afraid of code. It is actually your most helpful thing. Okay, any other questions?
All right. I am really pleasantly surprised about all the questions that you guys had. It's already 9:35. We stayed like another 35 minutes on. That is awesome. Like I was a little worried that it was like, okay, we did the demo and all of a sudden, you guys are going to jet, but just the fact that people are staying on, asking questions is very, very encouraging. So I'm just really, yeah, like this is just awesome to see the fact that you guys are into this and wanting to ask questions and wanting to learn is awesome.
Yeah, and if you feel that the session was great, like please do leave feedback for us so that we know like where to improve, maybe where to focus on. And yeah, if you're interested, do sign up for our session itself. But unfortunately, it's only for those in Singapore because it's a paid workshop where we'll really handhold you to make sure that you're proficient in the tool by the end of the session.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for attending. It was our pleasure and hope to see you guys again, whether it's a workshop, webinar, in person, online, whatever it is. So everyone have a good night.
Yep. And see y'all soon. We will definitely be having more sessions.